have a question for you. Do you have a color-coded vision board? Do you have a journal full of SMART goals? Or do you have your top 3 priorities for 2026? And if you answered no to any of those things, don't worry, same. And if you feel like you're failing at life because you don't have any of those things, don't worry, same. Because I had a coaching call this past week that shook me. Yes, we are talking about goals and what they actually feel like versus what they look like on Instagram. Because you know, whatever is on Instagram is real. I am going to give you the Sheila Science behind the real purpose of goals. Julian, I want to know, do you have any goals? Do you have a vision board? Is it color-coded? I need to know. Let's get like some music going because listen, if I want to get into my goals, I need to groove a little bit.
This is our time.
Welcome to Small Talk with Sheila. I am your host, Sheila, and this is the show where we talk about all the small moments in your life that make you the main character of your very own rom-com. And I am your bestie, reminding you that you don't have to be perfect to love your messy, magical self. So you know what to do. Light your Sheila candle. Mine is over there. And get yourself a drink. We are just in our spa era, okay? And let's get into it. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is how you don't actually ever recognize your goals. Let's start with story time. So last week I had a coaching call, and as I said, it shook me because I went in there and I was like, listen, we need to work on goals. I want to create some goals and I want to go after them. And my coach, she just looked at me and she said, all right, we could do that, but I have a question for you. Was it one of your goals to start a podcast? I was like, yeah. She's like, was it one of your goals to lead that AI project at work? And I was like, yeah. Isn't one of your goals to live more intuitively and authentically? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, well, haven't you accomplished those things? And I said, yeah. And that's the thing. You don't recognize ever accomplishing your goals, not in the way that it looks like on Instagram. And sure, there might be this moment where you like check a box, right? Maybe you are getting into shape and now you can like bench press a certain amount of weights, which I don't no idea about that because I do not bench press. Or maybe one of your goals is just to get out there and start dating because you want to meet the love of your life. Well, when you're in it, when you're in the middle of it, it doesn't actually feel like you're getting anywhere. Like I told my coach, I was like, I feel like it's this big rock and I keep moving and pushing it upwards and upwards. We need a visual here, Julian, right? I keep pushing and I'm like getting nowhere. But the reality is I can't look behind me when something is so heavy in front of me because, I mean, the rock would tumble me. But that's what goals feel like, you guys. They're not the way that they look on Instagram. The second myth about goals is that they are linear. You know the movie Julie and Julia? It is about this woman, Julie, who has this goal of getting through Julia Child's Mastering the Art of French Cooking and blog about it. She's like cooking dish after dish after dish after dish, and sometimes it's messy and sometimes it's great and sometimes she's getting real fat. And then there's this moment in the movie, right, where finally it feels like she's reached her destination. Judith Jones, who is the publisher of the book, is going to come for this meal to eat this famous recipe, the beef bouillon. Do you remember this scene? Because I love this scene. So anyways, Julie is preparing this beef bouillon and she burns it. I would definitely burn it. By the way, I'm horrible in the kitchen. And she is like, oh my God, this is the end of the world. Judith Jones is coming. And somehow she's like, okay, I'm going to try again. And she makes another batch of the beef bouillon. And what happens? Judith Jones calls in the last minute and says she's canceling. And it feels like this whole year of going through this cookbook and sharing it online was for nothing. But then the New York Times calls and they want to turn her blog into a book. And that book later becomes a movie with Amy Adams and Meryl Streep. So you guys, this is what we think on Instagram goals look like. If you're listening versus watching this, Don't worry, I'm going to describe it for you. So basically, we think goals are very straight and linear. Maybe there's a little dip or two, but they're just like skyrocketing to the right with the arrow. Woo! But that is actually not what real goals feel like. This is what a real goal feels like. Okay, it's like you start out and you get a little jump, and then all of a sudden you dip back down, and then all of a sudden you're back to the left, and then you're kind of going to the right, but it's all squiggly and it's like all over the place. And then you're like, wait, what just happened? And then one day you wake up and you're like, the goal that I had in the beginning completely changed, but somehow I made it to the next phase of my life. That's what goals actually feel like versus look like on Instagram. This one was a real kicker for me. We all do goal setting differently. And that's what my coach reminded me. There's a part of me that wants to follow all the self-development rules and create a 5-step process to the perfect goal setting. But my coach reminded me that I do goals my own way. For me, goals don't look like a color-coded vision board. My goals do not follow the SMART format. And I don't have this 3-step process for how to create the right goals, because for me, it's different. For me, I set an intention, something that I want to do, like a podcast where I express myself, or moving up in my career at work, or I don't know, living more authentically and intuitively. And I move towards that direction. And I wake up one day and I'm like, wow, I have accomplished a lot of my goals without even realizing it. So if you are not a pen to paper 3-step process, SMART kind of person, I just want to remind you that's okay, because we don't all have to go after goals in the same way. But this is the most important part, the Sheila Science of why we create goals. It's not about the destination. It's about the journey. You know, recently I was talking to someone about starting this podcast. And obviously it's amazing and wonderful and great, and also really hard and frustrating, and growing it in the audience has been one of the most challenging things I've ever done. And I was like, I don't know if it's working, I told her. She asked, are you learning something? And I said, yeah. She asked, is it making you a better person? And I said, yeah. And she asked, is it joyful for you? And I said, yeah. Yeah, it is. Because you guys, when Julie set out to cook all of Julia's recipes, it wasn't about reaching the end. It was about the journey. It was about who she became after every single recipe that she made. And so if you have a goal right now, I don't care what if you're like bench pressing and it is not bringing you joy, then I want you to stop it. And if you are wanting some external things to make you feel like you are reaching your goals, I want you to realize that the most important goals in your life are about joy and love. And you guys, as much as I talk about you being the main character of your own rom-com, I want to remind you something. When we watch a rom-com, there's always the end, but in our lives, it's just chapter after chapter after chapter. So it's never going to feel like we fully arrived. And it's not about the destination, it's about the journey of who we become by loving ourselves, by recognizing what we've accomplished, by realizing that even though our goals are messy and chaotic and all over the place, there are goals, by realizing that we all do goals differently. So, you know what to do right now, right? I want you to create a vision for your life, and I want you to create a vision for the next 3 months, for the next year. I want you to do whatever you want to do. I want you to just go out there and live life and remember that you are the main character of your own rom-com. And if you have that type A friend that is always in pursuit of the goal and just like is miserable, then please send them this episode. I mean, honestly, what is the purpose of a goal if it's not to be full of light and love and joy? And you know what to do. Help me reach my goals, okay? Subscribe, leave me a comment, hit the like button. I mean, all of it, any of it. I want to know how the show is reaching you and impacting you. And as always, if you have a goal that you just want to like bounce off someone, please email me at sheila@smalltalkwithsheila.com. And remember, this rom-com, this one, it's just getting started. I really need to hydrate. phone. This is what's happening. This is what podcast recording feels like.